Hey, Nicole Hunstman here from moderncosmic.com. This video goes with a video I just barely filmed on how to read a solar return chart. In this video, we're going to talk about one of the most important parts of your solar return chart, which would be your solar return ascendant, and in particular, where that ascendant falls in your natal chart. So this video, we're going to go through each of the houses and give you a little brief primer on what to expect for the year. Solar return ascendant in the first house of the natal chart. This shows us you're going to have a year where you get to exercise your free will. That gives you a lot of freedom, which can be a good thing, but it can also be a little frustrating when you're hoping that your astrology will kind of tell you what to do this year, or sort of give you more clues about what this year will look like. Many times this is a year where your success or your failure this year just depends on you. And I know that's kind of to be expected anyway, but it's sort of underscored during this year. Also, it's to be noted that if you've got planets in your solar return chart in the first house, take a look at those planets. When you do the overlay, the solar return into the natal chart, if those planets are falling into the first house in the natal chart, those are going to symbolize events that happen for you. Okay, so let's say you've got Mars in the solar return first house, and it's also falling into the first house of your natal chart. This means you're going to have a year where there's some sort of struggle, there's some sort of a fight, some sort of action that's going to be taking place. It's not necessarily comfortable. Look at the zodiac sign, look at the aspects being made to that Mars as well, but it's telling us that you're going to be activated in the first house. So perhaps you yourself will be forced to kind of rise up to a challenge of some kind. If your solar return ascendant falls into the second house is your house of finances and possessions. If that solar return ascendant is, and its ruler as well, with the zodiac sign it's in and that ruler, if they're both happy and being trined or being, making conjunctions or trines or aspects to Jupiter or Venus or, your moon, just look at what's happening with them. If they look happy, then this tells us this is going to be a year where finances will be maybe on your mind, but it could be for good reason. Now, if they've got restriction due to Saturn, or if you see any sort of Plutonian aspects that are malefic, there could be some issues of control, money changing hands, and Neptune could even be money, your money sort of dissolving and disappearing on you. So pay attention to the aspects, of course, because those are what describe and give color and flavor to this ascendant in the second house. Solar return ascendant in the third house. Third house is our Gemini house. It's a busy, busy placement. To me, this is one where I had this when I took on a new job and I was traveling a ton. It's a lot of short local trips many times. It's the third house rules these things. It's also the house that rules neighbors. It rules these relationships we have with other people that are sort of sibling relationships. It also rules communication. If you're a writer and you've got your ascendant, your solar return ascendant in the third house is a great year for writing. It's a great year for communicating. So anything that involves sort of this, whether it's communication or commuting, these two sort of key words, they're going to be a big part of your life this year. Look at the chart rulers, and it can also be, or not the chart ruler, sorry, look at the ruler of the ascendant, where it falls. I guess that is a chart ruler for the full return, but also look at the cusp ruler of that third house, and just take a look at how everything's dancing together, okay? This can be a year where there's a lot of nervous energy even. I see this with third house and sixth house and 11th house sometimes too, but you'd be a frenetic sort of energy that comes with this sort of a solar return ascendant placement. You've got your solar return ascendant in the fourth house. Fourth house is when we're doing sort of predictive astrology. The fourth house we think of as a house of endings. It's the house of the home as well. So this can be a time where you actually move. A lot of times we've got the ascendant there. It's a year that we move, we make some sort of change to our residence. Just it depends again upon what's happening to that ascendant. That will tell you, is this that if Saturn's making aspects, it tells me you're going to stay, but perhaps your home life, perhaps there's some sort of, maybe your house is needing some repairs. If you've got Pluto there, maybe, or some Neptunian energy, maybe you have a flood in your house, and you have to fix something. Just look at the contacts that are being made to other houses as well. If you've got, the solar return ascendant falls in your fourth house, and the ruler of that perhaps makes aspects to Neptune and to your second house, the house of money, and to your fourth house. Let's say then perhaps you are going to have some kind of a flood or some kind of you're going to lose something in your home that you can't find, or this type of thing. So if you can get the clues if you look at how everything interplays with one another. Also in the fourth house, you can see this is our house of security. So these issues of security, home, family, being focused on taking care of the family can come into the forefront during this year for you. Really, it's also kind of a time where you kind of want to be a homebody. Even if you're somebody who's really active socially, depending on what the zodiac sign is on your ascendant and that's there in that natal fourth house of yours, if you've got like Sagittarius there, maybe it means you're going to have a lot of people coming and hanging out with you at your house, or if it's Aquarius or something. But there definitely is a suggestion that home is going to be very important to you during this year. We've got our solar return ascendant in the fifth house. Fifth house is the house of creativity, house of children. It's the house of the lovers. So this is kind of a fruitful placement for the ascendant. You're going to need to look at, if you want to know specifically what this is talking about for you, for one, it's a year where you will be prolific with your creativity. This, for me, I actually have some pretty interesting things with my fifth house and my pregnancies. This is one where there are many people who they see activity in their fifth house in the solar return, or rather their interplay between the fifth house and the natal chart and the solar return chart, whether it's the ascendant or other planets. Many times it can show those times in our life when we become pregnant, especially Jupiter, this type of thing, because this is expansion, like you literally become larger. But this is also a time where if you're someone who is creative in any way, shape, or form, it's a year where you may be focusing on your creativity. If you're a parent, it's a year where you may be focusing on your children, focusing on your relationship with your children. On a little bit of good news with this placement, this is if you're someone who's been looking for a romance, many times this is a placement that improves our personal lives. So whether it's romantic personal life or just your intimate relationship with your family members, it is a time that will increase the vitality in this area. So a new person may come into your life during this particular year for you, this solar return year. Also important to mention, if you've got connections between your fifth house and your second house, your house of money, or your fifth house and your 10th house, your house of career, it could be a time where if they're positively, you've got to look at how the aspects, the geometry between the planets, if they're positively aspected to one another, it could be a time for growth. You may be offered a management position, if it's Leo rules the fifth house, which is the king, the queen. So it could be a time where you receive a promotion of some kind. If you've got negative aspects happening between the rulers of these houses, then this could be a time where you struggle a little bit financially, or you take some risks and they don't quite pay off for you. Okay, solar return ascendant in the sixth house of the natal chart. This is a time many times when we have some health issues, or at least our health becomes a focus. I had a client recently who has this coming up for her. She's a Virgo, just had her birthday here in September. And for her, this is a time, she just had a baby about a little less than a year ago. So she's sort of recovering from that. And she actually just barely made an appointment to go have all of her hormones checked with the doctor. So you see, it's a time when you're focusing on your physical body, and it could be a good time to start a new health regimen, or it could be a time when you just are sort of weaker than normal and you get the common cold more easily, this type of thing. So health can come into focus. It's also a time when you may be called to perform in a role where you're sort of a servant, where it's these tasks that feel a little bit demeaning and below your station, and they could be in the household, through your marriage, they could be through work. This is the house of the employee, so it could be through work. You could have a situation where you're working for a boss and it's just not a very satisfying working relationship, and you feel like a little demeaned. Okay, now it's not all bad. Success isn't all bad. It's just this is a house where it's a placement's Virgo. Virgo's detail oriented. It's a great year for analysis. If you're a writer, a scientist, anyone who is involved in categorizing, naming things, defining things, then this is a great year for you. And you may have your head in that particular headspace. Again, look at the ruler of the ascendant. Where is it falling? This is the solar return planet, okay? Where does that solar return planet fall into the natal chart? That's going to tell you and give you more information. And is that planet making any kind of harsh aspects to any of the other planets or angles in the natal chart? Okay, those will that tells you it's going to be a little more challenging 6th house placement. Solar return ascendant in the 7th house. 7th house is our house of partnership. So to suggest this may be a time where you create a new partnership. It could be a time to get married. It could be a time to create a new business partnership. Or if it's if the rulers are aspected poorly, it could be a time where you have some struggles and some conflicts with partnerships in your life. Also, if you're a politician, this is a good time for you guys if you've got the ascendant in the 7th house, because it's a time where there's a little bit of charm. Your ascendant is how you appear, how you come off. It's your sort of vibe, right? The way that you express yourself. Putting into the 7th house gives diplomacy. It gives this charisma or this charm, and it softens and sweetens people's dispositions, and it makes you more likable. It kind of makes you like, think of Benjamin Franklin versus John Adams. You know, Benjamin Franklin would be sort of more of a Venusian 7th house version, more of a diplomat. And it's good to note, though, this is also, remember, this is where you're going to be focused this year. It's the most important event for you this year is going to be related to the house, this natal house that the ascendant falls into. So this could be a time where you get divorced, actually. It could be a time where you get engaged or you get divorced. But the point is, it's about the partnership and the relationship and how you relate to relationship, okay? There's something about that that's important this year that's going to change or that's going to come into focus for you. You'll look back on this year and you'll think, oh yeah, that was the year that I got engaged, I got divorced, we started marriage counseling for the first time, etc. Look at the other, look at all of the planets to get details about what this is saying for you. Solar return ascendant in the 8th house, the natal 8th house. All right, this one is one that's sort of traditionally looked at as an omen, of a death of some kind, whether it's the death of a career, the death of an actual person, the death of a pet. It's a death and rebirth year. I don't take such an extreme approach to my predictive analysis of people's astrology because I don't think it's very helpful. But bear in mind, this is a year where there will be some big transformation. Transformation is not always comfortable. When a snake sheds its skin, I would imagine it's probably not the most pleasant experience. So many times when there's a death of something, you have to release and let that go, and that can be quite cathartic and that can be difficult. This can be a year as well, though, where you step into your personal power. Scorpio rules this 8th house. This is a very powerful house. It's the part of us that deals with death and rebirth and transformation. And also it's a time where you could have issues of, if you've got money that you're shared resources with someone else, you could have some issues come up around that. So remember, this is the focus for the year for you, okay? Look at the planets, the rulers, again, of the ascendant, where they're falling in the solar return chart and how they're being aspected in the solar return chart, and then also how they aspect with the natal chart, okay? The natal chart planets and where they fall, which houses they fall into. It's important to note the ruler of that ascendant, where it falls into the natal chart is going to show you the thing that's going to die and be reborn. So, this can be an issue if you've got the ruler falling into the 6th house, let's say the house of health, then perhaps you will have some health issues this year. If you've got, it's even surgery, if you've got the ruler falling into the 5th house, let's say, of what's kind of our house of creativity and love and romance, it could be a time where you've got a love relationship that ends, and or if you're not in a love relationship, where a new sort of tumultuous, intense one begins. So look at the planet, because the planet, if you've got an ascendant, let's say you've got a Venus, your solar return's a Libra solar return, but it falls in your 8th house, okay, in your natal chart. This gives you a Libra ascendant, gives you a Venus ruler. So that Venus, which is, that's your love life and romance, that falls into your 5th house. To me, this would suggest if you're in a relationship, if that Venus is poorly aspected, that's going to be ending, okay? If that Venus is happy and you're in a relationship, perhaps your relationship's going to undergo some big changes. If you're not in a relationship and it's a happy Venus, then you're probably going to meet someone. If your solar return ascendant falls into your 9th house, this is the house of wisdom and higher education. Really good. Also, it's also travel, foreign travel. It's a really good chance you are possibly going to go on a big long-term trip this year. If you don't go on an actual trip on an airplane or a boat or a train, there is an element of you stepping into higher education of some kind this year. This is a time, it's also the house of the teacher, the guru, the guide. So if you've already done the education thing, it may be your turn to go ahead and step into the role of a teacher this year. But these themes of wisdom, religion, higher education, spreading your, going from a little bit of body of knowledge you have in your world, from your culture, from your upbringing, and moving out into the world around you to learn the bigger lessons that there are to be learned. Having your solar return ascendant fall into your natal 10th house suggests that your most important event this year is going to have to do with career or social standing. It's your status, how you're seen in the world. So something will happen this year where status is going to be a big part of your motivation, and your headspace will be in this realm of status and what people think about you. Okay, look at, again, of course, look at where the ruler falls. This could be a time where you do receive a promotion if you've got good benefic aspects happening to the ruler of this solar return ascendant. If you've got negative aspects happening with malefic planets like Saturn or Mars or perhaps even Neptune or Pluto, it could be a year where you have some career challenges, and everybody knows about them. Okay, so it's the 10th. Kind of a deal. So look at what's happening in the rest of your chart to of course, get more information. It's interesting, the ascendant falling into this 10th house. This also can be seen many times because it's public, it's the top, a time when we get married or get divorced or totally change career. We do something, but everybody sort of knows about it. So this is a time for a bit of notoriety relative to whatever it is you're doing with your life that year. Solar return ascendant in the 11th house. 11th house is our house of friendships. It's also sort of the new age house. It's the fringe house. It has to do with the collective body and everyone's need for freedom. So it's allowing everyone to expand and grow in the way that they see fit for themselves. Having your ascendant here means you could be a little more social this year. I like to think of the 11th house also rules the internet. So this can be a time where if you've got an online business where you're really actively engaged in your online business. I've seen this with several clients actually. The year that I decided to pursue astrology as my full-time career was a year that my ascendant was in my 11th house, and the ruler actually fell into my 12th house. And so, this is sort of the combination of this Piscean, Neptunian, spiritual and intuitive part of us with the new age. So astrology was kind of a pretty good fit for that. Also at this house, expect to see an increase in your social activity, expect to see a desire for freedom as well. This is one where your path during this year will be a little bit different than the norm. You're going to be doing something that's a little fringe or unorthodox. And it's also our house of science, especially the sciences that have to do with cosmology or, the things we don't fully understand yet that are a little bit conceptual. Those are our 11th house rulerships. So you may be interested in those things as well this year. Expect your life this year to be it's going to be a little unorthodox though, which can be good if you got a lot of Aquarius and Uranus in your natal chart, and it can be a little difficult if you are really earthy. It can be an uncomfortable year of unexpected events. Okay. Last but not least, which is good because it's getting dark, losing my light. Last but not least, we've got our solar return ascendant falling into our natal 12th house. Natal 12th house, this is our house it's quite spiritual. The problem with the 12th house is it's disembodied. It's kind of other earthly. So that's why we associate it with being spiritual. But it can also be a time where we don't feel grounded. So having your ascendant here, this is the house of addiction, affliction, restriction. This can be a year where you do struggle with addiction or affliction or restriction, and you could be obsessed with something, or you could be lost in the middle of something. You could be really confused about your life, confused about your identity, which some people will escape that tension and, head towards addictive behavior. Some people will escape that tension and head towards meditation or prayer or, getting closer to spirit or trying to figure out what they believe, their consciousness, trying to understand their own consciousness perhaps. So depending on you and your natal chart, it's going to play out differently. That's why you have an astrologer. So that's the overall solar return ascendants in each of the houses of the natal chart. If you're interested in having a full and complete, this is like teeny tiny part of a solar return reading. It's an important part, but it's a small part. But if you'd like a forecasting or a forecast reading, go ahead and give me a message. You can inbox me on YouTube or Facebook, or you can message me at my website, moderncosmic.com, and we can get you set up. We have to do a birth chart reading first, and then we do a forecast for you for the year. So thanks for watching, and hope you have a good one. All right, bye-bye.